So now America is heading into an era called the Great Depression, literally an era where 30% of the people have no money and are unemployed. All right. So the stock market crash of 1929 was one of many steps that lead to people having nothing. So, for example, remember World War One back in the late 1910s? Well, those soldiers needed to eat. So a lot of farmers in the 1910s had way overproduced their product. When you have too much of something, it lowers the value of your product. So there was so much produce going for so cheap, the farmers weren't making enough profit, and what they couldn't sell off just rotted. So farmers were losing lots of money. We all know how Americans had an affinity for buying stuff on credit. Why use your cash now and you could use credit and pay later? Problem was, when you lost your job, you still had to pay that credit off, which you can't do if you don't got a job. And also, remember the big billionaires of the 1800s? There was an unequal distribution of wealth in America, and this was making it difficult for many Americans to make purchases. Think of it like one person in our class of 30 has $10, and then there's $1 to split between the other 29 people in class. That person with the $10 would be fine come lunchtime, but the rest of you with 29 of you sharing $1, nobody's getting anything for lunch there. So it is bad for the economy if too few people have too much of the money. Now, the agricultural depression we talked about, where farmers overproduced and picked all the crops out of the land. Now, with too many crops not holding soil down, the soil dried out. So all through the Midwestern states, we see lots of dried soil, lots of higher than usual temperatures, which the farmers didn't cause but didn't help the situation. And we see the Dust Bowl occur. So think of a hurricane, but on land and made out of dust. Now imagine that sweeping through a countryside. It would sweep through one of those black blizzards, as they called it, would sweep through a town, and then the town couldn't see for a few hours. There was just dust everywhere, and obviously you cannot grow crops in the dust. So farmers kind of cause their own peril here. Now, there's an organization in America to make sure that there's enough money in banks. But the problem with people running to get money out of the bank at the same time, this organization called the Federal Reserve couldn't keep up with the money supply. So they failed to prevent the widespread collapse of the nation's banking system in the late 1920s and 30s, leading to a severe contraction in the nation's supply of money in circulation. It's their job to put dollar bills out so people can go spend them, but too many people pulled out too much money too quickly, which means there's not enough hard currency for people to go spend. So the Federal Reserve wasn't doing their job to make sure that there was enough money for people to get out. Now, we hear this word a lot in American history, and it never has a good context. Tariffs. Ooh. So America decided to put a tax on imported goods to encourage people to buy American. Problem was, nobody was buying American because nobody had money. So a lot of people were relying on imported goods. So the only thing that most people could buy was now much more expensive than it should have been. And what this all kind of does is other countries who we have put tariffs on, they put tariffs on us. So everything gets more expensive for everybody. Nobody can buy stuff. And tariffs just lead to retaliation. So this just kind of restricts trade because no one is going to buy the more expensive foreign product, and nobody can buy the American products that aren't getting made. All right. So countries are just messing around with each other. So, what does the Great Depression mean for America? Mass unemployment. You don't have a job, you can't pay the mortgage, so people go live on the streets. You see little beggar children start going across the country. There's tens of thousands of children after their parents become homeless. They just start traveling the country. There's lots of great movies about that. If you want suggestions, let me know. Collapse of the financial system, bank closings, talked about that with the stock market crash. Can't go get money or put your paycheck in a bank that doesn't exist. Now, when people have no money, there's no demand for goods. There's no demand for goods, businesses can't produce. If businesses can't produce and sell, they can't make money. If they can't make money, they can't employ people to make the goods they can't sell. So nobody has money, nobody has stuff, people are losing their houses. And remember how labor unions would pop up to defend workers' rights? Those guys are trying to blame somebody. Now, the employers really can't help that they have to lay people off, or else they're going to lose all their money. So the labor unions become very, very militant, which means they're taking up arms against the people who are they see as oppressing them. So there's mass political unrest. People are looking for someone to blame, and it's usually the government or people who used to have power before this. And obviously, if farmers cannot produce crops, they cannot pay for their farms, and their farms get foreclosed. All right, we see lots of people move from the Midwest away from the Dust Bowl to California. That's why California has a large population today in the United States.